welcome back to Good Day Stateline. Spring is kind of in the air, right? We might get another snowstorm, but like we are all thinking is spring. And tonight, Matt is here from Carz R Us because we're going to talk about how to get our cars ready for spring because now's the time to think about it.
Yeah, and last week we had 50, so
Yeah,
you know
nice.
we got to hope for more of that. So, well, and honestly, it's the prep of what's coming, right?
Yeah.
That's what I look at. So, what happens when it gets warmer? We unroll the windows. So when we unroll windows, what happens? We hear noises,
Okay.
right? All of a sudden, we got noises that we didn't notice before,
Yeah.
right? It's like, I don't remember that happening. So I brought a brake pad with. Well,
Okay.
this is kind of a brake pad. You can see this should have an actual surface on it, which would be the brake pad material. That should be about this thick, right?
Okay.
So if we got this, you can see here, that thickness of the green right there would be a good brake pad.
So this
right?
is not a good one.
No, this is just the metal. So this is what we call the backing plate. So when this is riding on the rotor, it's going to make hellacious noise. I mean, we're talking grinding, all sorts of noise. So you know when this is happening, you're just not bringing it in. That's unsafe, right? Typically, brakes don't go from good to that, right?
Yeah.
That takes a little time. But when you unroll the windows, all of a sudden you hear these noises, squeaks, stuff like that. You want to get those addressed because we had somebody, good friend of mine just a couple months ago, he heard a noise and then it went away and he's like, that did not sound right. He had the car towed in and luckily he did. The wheel bearing was ready to let go. And when a wheel bearing lets go, the wheel actually separates from the vehicle. So your car's here and the wheel comes off. That's actually what holds the vehicle, the wheel to the car. So if he hadn't towed it in, it was not going to hold driving it to the shop. So he made a very good decision. Most of the time it's not that extreme, but be smart, right? If you hear noises, get them in before they're getting really bad because they can be safety issues. And you see the cars on the highway broke down with the tire flip sideways, things like that. That's because they waited too long.
We don't want that.
Not good, right? So, and how does that stuff happen? Well, we got warm weather, which creates issues in the roads, right? We got potholes and we got buckling, right? We see those big lumps in the road. And then I was driving here, there was a hole this big and this deep.
You almost got lost.
Yeah, but like my whole car gets sucked into that, right? So the problem is, what do? If there's somebody next to you coming the other way, how do you avoid that, right? So sometimes we don't have a choice but to run into those. So what does that cause? Well, how do we minimize the issues with those? Because we can't always avoid them. So I brought a sample display here.
Okay, this looks like a piece of a sewing machine.
It looks a little crazy, but if you think about it, these are shocks, okay?
Okay.
So what does a shock do for your vehicle? You either have shock, struts, or both, okay? What that does is keeps the vehicle on the ground. It keeps it from jumping up, and it affects all sorts of other components. So here is a bad shock. See how it pops right back up, and I'll flip this around so they can see it, right? That, boom, flips back up. It's not supposed to do that. Watch this side.
Okay.
See how it's slowly coming up?
Yeah.
Right? So what that is these actually have hydraulic fluid in them, and that fluid over time either starts to leak out, they wear out, they rebound enough that they go to where they just pop back up. So what happens is with the car is it bounces when it hits that bump. Now, when the bad shocks, it will keep doing that. You see the car hit the bumps and it's like you're in the lowrider, right? That's not a good thing. That's bad shocks and struts, right? So what happens is that vehicle, every time it bounces, it's wearing out your tires. It creates flat spots on those tires where it bounces, right? Now, the other things is when it's not grounded, it wears your brakes because you have to use those more to stop, right? It also wears your ball joints, all these steering and suspension parts on the vehicle. So premature wear and also, a lot more cost. So the problem with shocks and struts is they're expensive. And a lot of times people think I don't need them. Well, you don't. The goal with maintenance, which really shocks and struts replacement should be maintenance, if you need them, you should have replaced them already, right? Maintenance is to be done before you need them, right? So when they wear out, you're going to affect all sorts of other things. Now you need them and you need 4 other things that are wore out, right? So that's what we want to avoid. And then when you got good shocks and struts, it's like when you buy that new car, you hit those bumps and it doesn't feel so bad, right? That's what new shocks and struts do. They make it where you hit those bumps and it minimizes the damage or the wear and tear on the car, right? So they're not cheap, but they're important. You got tax returns coming in.
Sure.
Maybe that's the time to take that money and put it into that budget.
So do you recommend treating your car like a human body and going to the doctor once a year?
Yeah. And we all avoid it. It takes time. We're busy. And the quick lubes are great, right? We get them in, we get out, and we're there 20 minutes and we get the oil change. But they don't lift the car up. So how are they checking a lot of the things that we're checking? They're just not, right? So when you bring it into a shop, we're going to lift that car up. We're going to check everything. We actually road test every vehicle that comes in, and then we do a digital inspection. So we send you pictures, videos, pricing right in the inspection, so you see exactly what you need. And then stuff like shocks and struts, we're going to recommend those based on age, mileage. You know, typically 7 years or so, because you got to figure those shocks, whether you're driving or not, are wearing, right? Because the weight of the car is never not on the shocks, right? You can't lift that off of the car. So if you only put 40,000 miles in 7-8 years, they're still wearing out, right? So we have an age-based and a mileage-based recommendation
Just
for
like
those.
a doctor. All right, where can we find you? Because I'm sure everyone wants to come see you now.
Absolutely. We're up in on 173 in McChesney Park in southwest corner of that intersection. You can check out our website. We actually have text number on there, so you can text in us and not have to call us.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for teaching us some stuff tonight, Matt.
Absolutely. Thanks for the time, Michelle.
Auto Week continues next with Tim Mahoney. We're talking about auto insurance, and then it's game day too. We'll be right back.
877-4277